Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. First, want to thank our partners at the Toronto Police Service for the efforts that they extended to us in this investigation. The TTC takes fare evasion and the counterfeiting of its fare extremely seriously. We have an obligation and a responsibility to our law-abiding customers who buy their fare from legitimate sources to take action against those who attempt to evade paying their fare. Over the next few years, the TTC will be moving to Presto. That electronic fare card will bring an end to counterfeiting on the TTC, stemming an estimated $5 million in revenue loss, both in counterfeit passes and fake tokens. In the meantime, the TTC has one message for its customers today, and that is buyer beware. If a deal sounds too good to be true, for example, a $50 Metro Pass for sale online, then that deal probably is too good to be true. And the message for those who traffic in counterfeit passes and fare media, and those who purchase counterfeit fare media knowingly and use them in the system, you will be caught, as the 62 arrests and 196 criminal charges today will attest. I'm now going to introduce to you Mark Russell, our Staff Sergeant from our Special Investigations Unit, who will take you through this investigation and explain talk about some of the passes that we seized and some of the work that they did together with Toronto Police in bringing an end to some serious counterfeiting here in Toronto. Mark?
Thanks, Brad, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for your interest. I'm just going to give a bit of an overview of this investigation and then let PC Moynagh talk in more detail. In 2009, the TTC was being hammered with counterfeit Metro passes, and quite a few arrests were made at that time, and some labs were taken down. But as a result of that, some significant changes to the design of the Metro Pass were made, incorporating holograms to beef up the security features of the passes. That kept us out of trouble and away from the counterfeiters for about 2 years. And then in mid to late 2011, we started to see a significant increase in counterfeit Metro passes, and they were using pretty good quality holograms as part of their toolkit. So the Special Investigations Unit, we receive all the reports of counterfeit fare media. Those reports come from our observant frontline surface vehicle operators, bus drivers, streetcar drivers, and our subway station collectors, as well as our transit enforcement officers who are doing routine fare enforcement. We also receive tips through our customer service line and anonymous tips through the Crime Stoppers program. And in the fall of 2013, we had a pretty substantial intelligence database built up, and we approached the Toronto Police Service Transit Patrol unit and asked for some assistance in doing some target enforcement and working towards making some arrests of people trafficking in these passes and working towards building intelligence and finding the perpetrators, people that were making these. So as a result of our request, 2 officers from the Transit Patrol unit were dedicated to the Special Investigations Unit of the TTC, and based on the intelligence analysis, targeted enforcement took place, and follow-up was done with the sellers of the Metro passes. Where the grounds existed, everybody that was caught using the passes or selling the passes were charged criminally. Typically, the people caught using the passes were charged with fraud under $1,000 or $5,000, possession of property obtained by crime, and uttering a forged document. And just to reiterate what Brad said, the TTC's position with this is, it's buyer beware. There are no deals on Metro passes. There's legitimate passes being sold on Kijiji and different online forums, but it is buyer beware. The swipe feature of the Metro passes, the mag stripe, has never been compromised. So a sure way of identifying an authentic pass is if it activates an automatic turnstile. And before you buy one or sell them, you just have to ask yourself, is it worth it? These 62 people that are facing charges are all before the courts. They're paying for lawyers. They've been fingerprinted and photographed. For saving a few dollars, is it worth it? So thank you. I turn it over to Bob.
Thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Moynagh. I'm a police constable of the Transit Patrol Unit, Toronto Police Service. I just have some statistics for you based on our 4-month effort here. 62 persons were arrested. I can advise you that 39 arrests occurred at subway stations. 16 arrests occurred on surface vehicles. The 39 arrests occurring at subway stations happened literally throughout the system. The majority of the arrests were at Scarborough Town Centre, followed by Dufferin, Sherbourne, Victoria Park, College Station, Lawrence West Station. There was no specific geographical area. Similar to the buses, of the 16 arrests that took place on buses, the majority of which were Finch West, but they also happened on the Jane bus, the Lawrence East bus, and the Shepherd East bus. I can quickly advise you that the average age of the persons arrested was 29 years of age. And that's pretty much all I have in regards to the numbers. The blue passes for December was our largest seizure. That was from a person that was arrested for trafficking forged documents. And upon being searched incident to arrest, he was found to be in possession of 56 counterfeit December Metro passes. And those have been signed out of our evidence locker and brought down for you here today.
Constable, can you talk a little bit about the group of people who was involved in this? Tell us their connections, how they knew each other, how this sort of got through that group.
The majority of the people that were arrested for trafficking the fake passes, it appears that it was just a social network of friends, not necessarily social media per se, but it's a friend of a friend. Somebody would get a number, and using different investigative techniques, we were able to arrange a meet with them, and they unknowingly sold to police or TTC investigative personnel, and they were subsequently arrested.
How much were they selling the passes for?
Generally, it was about half the face value of the pass.
So these arrests happened on either subways or buses. Were they selling the passes on those buses?
No, the majority of the arrests, there were 55 people arrested for presenting a counterfeit Metro Pass for their fare, and there were 7 people that were arrested separate to actually being on the transit system for trafficking in the passes.
Do you believe of those 55 people, do you believe most of them knew that they were using counterfeit passes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are various things that we look for that we don't necessarily disclose. When we speak about the Metro Pass, there are inherent security features built within, and there are certain traits that we look for in the average fare or the average passenger. And generally, people that do not swipe their Metro Pass, we have a look at that Metro Pass, because as Brad mentioned, or as Mark mentioned, the mag stripe has not been compromised at this point.
If you believe somebody is just truly naive, they think they got a great deal, they're using it for the first time, could you still be arrested even if you didn't realize that you bought a fake pass?
I can advise you, we met very few people of that ilk in the last several months. But as the main theme here, buyer beware. If you meet somebody at a Tim Hortons or a McDonald's and buy a Metro Pass for half its face value, you got to figure out something's going on, especially if it's early in the month when the value of the pass is at its highest.
These 7 people who are arrested for trafficking, is there any way of knowing or estimating how many fake passes they sold overall?
Not really. This, like I say, the December passes here, that was the highest quantity of passes that we found on the various persons that we arrested.
Are there any, I know the total value of the passes, of all the total value?
No, as mentioned earlier, the TTC look at it as a total loss to the system as far as fare revenue that they're not collecting. We would just have to basically count the passes on the table and then multiply by the face value.
Can you tell us a little bit about where you think this might be made? I mean, they look pretty legit.
I can advise you the investigation is still very much ongoing. We're very much interested in hearing from members of the public who have information on people that are either making or selling the passes. And we encourage members of the public to call Crime Stoppers and provide that information to the police.
The people who are arrested for trafficking, are they believed to be the ones who are producing it as well?
Not necessarily.
So we don't know where these passes were made, is that fair to say?
It's fair to say the investigation is ongoing, and We're hoping to be back here in a few months with more information.
And no lab shut down like you did in 2009, right?
Not at this point, no.
And just looking at the past,
Are that making overseas? What's up making local?
No, we believe they're probably being made locally.
just looking at the past, what are the obvious signs? How do you tell between a counterfeit one? How do you know that these are counterfeit?
Well, as mentioned, it primarily comes down to the inherent security features, which the TTC typically don't reveal all the features of that pass. But there are things that we can check visually, and it's a fairly quick analysis to determine if it's fake or not.
But is there something that the average person, like if they don't know, if they were to spot something on the card that to like look out for?
The biggest thing is if you haven't bought it from a legitimate source, either an authorized reseller or from a transit station, if you are buying it secondhand or if you're borrowing it from a friend and you have any doubts, just run it through the automated reader. Like I say, none of the counterfeits we've come across have been able to compromise the mag stripe.
I'll just speak to that from the TTC perspective. There are a couple of features that the TTC is willing to share, so that if people find themselves in a situation and want to know if their pass is counterfeit, there's a couple of things that we can share. I guess primarily the swipe feature. If
Sorry, can you grab the pass?
Yeah, sure.
Pass and you show it?
You could compare it to one of the real passes when you're, please.
So that's a fake one. This is a real one. One of the quick tells is authentic passes are glossy on one side and have a flat finish on the back, sort of a matte finish. All the counterfeits that we've encountered so far are glossy both sides. The mag stripe is just ink that's laid on there. That may be a little bit difficult to tell for the average person. Another quick tell is kind of a field test. Authentic passes, the serial number and the price in that top point up there, it's raised. It's a raised ink. It's printed on through a separate process. And on all the counterfeits that we've encountered so far, it's flat. You can't feel any texture there at all. Those two items should be enough for any patron to tell the difference. Yeah.
You guys said that you had a spike in late 2011, right? After sort of a lull with
Not so much a spike, but a gradual increase.
So can you just give us an idea numbers-wise, like how many passes you were seeing, and then numbers-wise, what sort of decrease you saw since the crackdown began in the fall?
I'm qualified by saying these are approximate numbers, but we were, in the last year and a half or so, we've been seeing 150 to 200 reports come through our office. And as I indicated earlier, those reports are reports from observant bus drivers who are spotting them on their route, streetcar operators, subway station collectors, and our transit enforcement officers. And the thing with Metro passes is we don't see them at the end of the cycle, whereas tokens, we can give you an accurate count of how many counterfeits because we can pull them out of our revenue stream. So, I mean, we've been doing this a long time, and we just have to do some estimating, and it's educated guesses. But I would suggest that if we're getting 150 or 200 reports at a very conservative level, that's maybe 10% of what's out there. And that's based on like intelligence that we're getting from anonymous sources and people that have been seen with boxes of them. Like we get our information from all different places.
So what's your message then to the other 90% of people who are out there carrying fake passes right now?
Is it worth it? Is it worth? Is it worth being charged criminally for saving $50 or $60? I mean, we always have two ways to go. We can lay criminal charges, or bylaw charges can be laid as well in relation to this. And right off the bat, if a bylaw charge is laid, that's a set fine of over $400.
What's the bylaw charge?
What's the wording, Chris?
Altered fair media.
Use altered fair media.
Why was it chosen to do criminal charges in this case instead of bylaw charges?
In my opinion, and historically, the criminal charges send a stronger message. It's the appropriate charge. It is fraud. It is utter forged document. And because the goal of the investigation was to work towards the back end, it gives us some leverage. So anyway, for this project, that's the route we took. Where appropriate, the criminal charges were laid.
Are police still going to be at stations? I know when I was at Dufferin today, there were some people who actually had seen that they had seen police more often now. Is that sort of the plan in order to keep an eye on this?
Well, it's always part of the enforcement effort of both the TTC transit enforcement officers as well as the transit patrol unit. You know, it's all resource driven and call driven, and I mean the resources are there or they're not there. There's no targeted resources right now.
Swiping mandatory for anyone who has a Metro Pass, because it seems as if people have been obviously going through the operator showing their Metro Pass. I mean, should you change the rules then
And
to
maybe
better
Brad can
monitor that?
answer this, how it works now.
So a couple of things around fare evasion in general. We are, in addition to getting back our special constable status for our transit enforcement officers, we're also building the resources with respect to fare inspection. So the new streetcars that come online later this year and will roll out across all 11 streetcar lines over the next 5 to 6 years will all be proof of payment. In other words, you will not interact with the operator of the streetcar. You will have to tap your Presto card or demonstrate proof of payment through a transfer or receipt. And that will be through fare inspectors, a new budgeted approved allotment by the end of this year, an additional 20 fare inspectors. So fare enforcement around fare evasion and counterfeiting is something we, as I said earlier, take extremely seriously. It is something that does require resources, though. We do know that people do evade their fare, and we do get reports from customers who are concerned about that. They pay their fare. Why are these people getting away without paying theirs? And so that is something we do take to heart and we do recognize as an issue and are doing our best to address. With respect to making swiping mandatory, at this point, I don't think there's any need to try to re-educate, if you will, our customers about how to behave with a Metro Pass, because today when you board a streetcar or a bus, it is simply a flash, right? You simply hold up the pass and you show it to the operator of those vehicles, or the collector of a station, for example. If it's in your wallet, you just hold it up. And so we don't want to have to re-educate people only to have in 3 or 4 years have them do a whole new system of education, if you will, around tapping with your Presto fare card. So, you know, as Mark said earlier, you know, buy your fare media, whether it's tokens or passes or tickets, from TTC Collector. All of our stations have debit and credit capabilities. We're going to add tokens and tickets and other fare media to that debit credit offering this spring. We have pass vending machines in many of our stations, and we have over 1,000 authorized fare media sellers in the city. So there's no excuse not to buy your fare from a legitimate source.
What do you mean by these passes were made local?
I'm sorry?
What do you mean by these passes were made locally?
I believe an earlier question was whether the passes were being made overseas, and it's our belief through this investigation that they are likely being made in the GTA.
Is there anything being done to tweak the security features of the cards to make it more difficult for this lab, wherever it is, or whoever it is, to use through them?
So we've done a number of things over the years. We added the hologram. The hologram's dimensions and location on the pass, its shape changes every month. We've added the clip feature. So there is a clip feature that for those who are visually impaired to know the front of the pass and how to swipe it. It has a rounder, softer edge for a legitimate pass. It's got a hard edge for those that are fake. We put a sticker on all of our passes to prevent what we call renting of passes. That's another security feature that we've added. And there are other features that, of course, we don't discuss so as not to tip off counterfeiters. Whether there's any additional new features that, I can't really speak to that right now. I think we're moving towards a Presto fare card. We will continue to do enforcement like we are today and make announcements today of, 196 criminal charges being laid is pretty significant. And I think it sends a very strong message that the TTC and the Toronto Police Service take this kind of thing very, very seriously.
So could you talk about the investigation at the Scarborough Town Center?
I can advise you, as stated earlier, that arrests took place literally throughout the city. As far as the arrests that occurred at subway stations, Scarborough Town Center had the most. But then on the other end of town at Dufferin, there were almost as many made at Dufferin. So we don't think it's a problem within a specific area in the city. It's clearly a problem on the system.
Brad, don't you think you'd catch more people if you made everybody swipe on the subway system? I mean, they haven't mastered the whole swiping system, so if you made everybody all the time swipe, wouldn't you catch more people?
Well, as I was saying earlier, I mean, we have collectors in our stations, so people sometimes they have their pass in their wallet. These are, the vast majority of our customers, of course, are law-abiding and they have their pass. So we don't want to make things overly difficult for our customers. We do fare enforcement. We see people lined up at a collector booth with a Metro pass to flash their pass. That's a pretty good indication that perhaps that mag stripe's not working and that pass needs to be checked. So we do that kind of fare enforcement. I don't think from an organization that is so customer focused and so customer led that we want to burden our customers with having them do something that, for what? We assume that they may be criminals, so we want to make sure you're not. I mean, no, I don't think that's the message we want to send. And certainly, as I say, in the next 3 to 4 years, the Presto fare card is coming online. That will require everybody to tap on when they enter the system, whether it's on a bus or a streetcar or a subway station. You'll get a visual and an audible sound to indicate that tap is legitimate. And the Presto fare card and fare cards in general have never been compromised. And so we look forward to being able to move towards that kind of a system.
Swiping even on the subway then? I mean,
There's no policy decision before us that's going to make our customers swipe into a subway station, no.
How do you beat it then until the Presto card comes into effect?
So today is a good example of doing enforcement, making arrests, checking passes, sending a very clear message to those who are considering buying counterfeit fare media. It is a crime. You will get caught. You will face serious criminal charges. As Mark said, is it worth the $50 or $60 savings? We don't think so.
And if you can tell us